Live.
Hi everybody, we're just getting our tech together here. We're going to start in a moment.
All right.
Are you seeing a feed, Robin?
I am.
I'm not seeing a feed. I don't see anything. I'm going to refresh. Hold on with me, folks. Thank you.
You're good.
Well, there we go. Excellent. Excellent. Hi everybody. I'm Dédé Wilson of FODMAP Everyday, and this is our first of hopefully many live Facebook chats. FODMAP Everyday is our community and online platform for all of you who are following the low FODMAP diet, and we're going to be talking this evening about holiday food prep, because there's absolutely no reason why all of us, family members and friends who are following the diet and those who are not, can't enjoy all of the classic foods: turkey, cranberry sauce, stuffing, gravy, everything. So if you have questions, you can type them just below here, the video, and I will get to them. But first, I just want to give you a little background in case you don't know my background or that of FODMAP Everyday. Again, my name is Dédé Wilson, and I've been in the food business for 30 years, and for the great majority of that time, I was suffering with irritable bowel syndrome. It was a real struggle. I was working with food every single day and suffering. I mean, 3 to 4 days a week, I had really debilitating IBS symptoms, and that was until I discovered the low FODMAP diet. My background is in recipe development. I'm a cookbook author. I hosted several public television shows, and so I know my way around a turkey or two, and that's why we're talking about food prep this evening. My 17th book is coming out next month, and that is The Low FODMAP Diet, Step by Step, which I co-authored with Kate Scarlatta, so you can look for that as well. So when I discovered the diet, it really changed my life, and it inspired me to reach out to Kate to suggest that we write a book, and also to develop FODMAP Everyday, which I co-founded with my pal, Robin. She's behind the camera. Say hi, Robin.
Hello.
We're bringing this community to you because I knew that I had been suffering needlessly for way too long, and I love food. I wanted to be able to make food with friends, friends with food, food with friends, it's all the same thing, again. And so we have at FODMAP Everyday recipes, articles. We have a success team made up of registered dietitians and complementary health practitioners. We have guest bloggers that come and provide content for us. So if you haven't checked us out yet, please do so. And just any questions you have about holiday prep, I'm here to help you out. So as I mentioned before, you know, I started mentioning some of the classics. So we think of Thanksgiving, we certainly think of that beautiful big turkey that's going to be on the table. We think of all the sides, the stuffings, gravy, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce. I know that I'm going to be eating every single one of those things next week, and they are all going to be low FODMAP. And the people at the table who are not following the diet, they're not going to know. The recipes are going to be delicious. And that's the point of FODMAP Everyday. We really want to show you how you can integrate this diet into your everyday life. So let's talk about the turkey first. You know, because I think that that's the one thing that probably all of us will have. So a lot of people want to know, do I buy fresh? Do I buy frozen? What size? How do I know what size to buy depending on how many people I have? So let's go through it. And just so you know, we have an article called Turkey 101 on the site. So all the stuff that I'm going to go over tonight is there in text for you. You can reference it anytime you want. So fresh versus frozen. So here's the deal. There's nothing inherently wrong with a frozen turkey, but the problem is defrosting it. The best way to defrost a turkey is slowly. So for every 4 or 5 pounds of turkey, you want to give it about 24 hours in the refrigerator. This is going to mean that you're going to need a big chunk of space in your fridge set aside for that turkey for several days. And not all of us have that ability. So that's the first thing to think about. You can take the turkey, which they all come wrapped in an airtight plastic bag. You can take that turkey still wrapped and submerge it into a bucket or a deep stock pot with cold water and keep it cold, very important for safety. And you can change the water every 30 minutes, and that will hasten the defrosting. But again, it's a little bit of a to-do. I prefer to buy a fresh turkey just for that reason. I don't, we have enough to do, right? We're thinking about the diet, we're thinking about all the food prep we have to do. I don't want to have to think about defrosting a turkey. Then, size. This is an interesting one. So a lot of references will tell you 1 pound per person. I like to go 1.5 pounds per person because, and it sounds like a lot, but I love the leftovers. We've got some great ideas on the site. Maybe you have some tried and true things you like to do with leftover turkey. Even if it's that sandwich the next day, I want leftover turkey. So go for 1.5 pounds per person. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to pack that all into one gigantic turkey. Years ago, I decided to make 2 smaller turkeys side by side. Now, granted, I had the oven space to do that, but I thought it was so much better. The turkeys roast more evenly. If you're a little ambitious and crazy like I am, you could even make 2 different recipes. But I like getting turkeys in the 12 to 15 pound range. You could get a 20 pounder if you want. I just don't find that they cook as evenly. So 1.5 pounds per person. Choose your sizes, fresh or frozen. I definitely recommend fresh. And then you've got all these other choices to make. Right now at one of our local supermarkets, they have turkeys on sale right now for 39 cents a pound. The turkeys, however, that's economical, but these turkeys are what are called self-basting. They're often the least expensive turkeys that you'll find in the supermarket, and I'm not a huge fan. They are injected with saline solution. This is supposed to plump them up and make them juicier. It doesn't, and I'll get to that in a moment, but you're also paying for that water weight, which is kind of crazy. And then they can also be injected with emulsifiers and all kinds of additives that we don't really need. And especially when we're following the low FODMAP diet, we really want to try to eat as cleanly as possible. So I really like to avoid those. Getting back to what I mentioned, they're supposed to be juicier because of that saline solution. I find that they cook up actually into this weird combination of like dry and spongy at the same time. It's a little strange. So I prefer not to buy the self-basting. There's a lot of talk right now about heritage turkeys and heritage breeds, and especially if you are buying a turkey from a butcher, maybe they have these kinds of, they're more of a specialty product. The thing about heritage breeds is it's about the breed. It's not really about the processing at all. And the heritage breeds tend to be leaner. They cook more quickly, so you have to keep an eye on them. They typically are not as tender, and they do have a slightly more aggressive, gamier flavor. I mean, I don't think that they're gamey, but they do taste a little different and have a different texture than maybe the turkey you grew up with, that your mom made, that your grandmother made. So if you're going for that sort of nostalgia factor, they're not going to be the same. Then we have kosher birds. We've had questions about that. Kosher birds are raised and slaughtered. They're slaughtered and processed according to rabbinic laws. There are not a lot of things that are governing how they're raised before that. They are also brined. They're salted. So if you are going to brine a turkey, we have a recipe for an awesome gluten-free beer and brown sugar brine turkey on the site. You don't want to start with a turkey that's already been soaked in a salt solution. So kosher's fine, but not if you're going to brine them. Also, even though there are no laws governing whether they are free range or organic, they often are, but you have to check, read the labels, and talk to your butcher about that. Now, in terms of organic birds mean that they've only been fed food that is organic, which means no GMOs, there's no pesticides, no herbicides. It's a clean feed for the bird. A lot of people think that they taste better. I do happen to like an organic bird. And then you might see labeling that references how the bird lived. Free range, free roam, pasture raised, these all mean slightly different things. Free range can literally mean it just has access to the outside. It needs to have access to the outside for 51% of the time of its life, but that literally can mean there's just like a little door into a very small outdoor space. If it's very important for you to know that the turkey got to strut about and, just have its day in the field, so to speak, then you're going to want to look for pasture raised. So again, you can read our Turkey 101. All this information is there. This is information that's governed by the USDA. So this is covering US based only. So that's pretty much it for turkeys. Also, some other general things. So those little pop-up timers, they really don't work. They're usually like white plastic. They're stuck in the breast with a little red center, and they're supposed to pop up when the turkey's done. But what tends to happen is that they encourage over roasting. So remove those. Get rid of them. You have time to invest in an instant read thermometer, which you will use year-round for much more than just your turkey. So it's a great investment. And in terms of temperature, we like to go to 165 degrees Fahrenheit. You're going to insert the thermometer into the thigh, but not touch the bone. The bone conducts heat, so you might get a false high reading. And another thing that I find really fascinating, because I've served turkeys, I've served all kinds of poultry actually that I knew were done, and people thought that they weren't because there seemed to be blood or there seemed to be pink or redness near the bone or in the flesh. And a lot of people, it makes them nervous. They think it's raw, but actually the type of bird, the way things are processed can really affect the color of the meat and the way that looks. So if you have an instant read thermometer and it's new and you know it's working, you can trust it. And that's the way to go for sure. Stuffing. We're talking about turkey. Let's go to stuffing. So with stuffing, with the low FODMAP diet, we have to talk about gluten, right? Because a lot of us like a wheat-based stuffing, or that's what we grew up with. Maybe that's what we're missing. If you haven't learned yet about FODMAPs and gluten and where this this juncture is, let me let you in on something, because this is kind of exciting. I ate gluten-free for over 25 years because I thought I needed to. And it turned out that I was actually all that time reacting to the fructans in the wheat, not the gluten. So what this means is a lot of you probably know that wheat contains gluten, and a lot of people have a reaction to it. Celiacs, of course, but even people with a gluten intolerance will react. But the thing is that wheat also contains fructans. That's the FODMAP that's in wheat, and you can't like take out you can't take out the gluten and the fructans from the wheat, so they're all in there together. So when we do the elimination phase of the diet, that is why we go gluten-free. That's why we don't eat wheat. But perhaps during your challenge phase, hopefully you're working with an RD, a registered dietitian. They've helped you reintroduce foods one at a time, different FODMAP groups one at a time, and maybe you will be one of the lucky ones who find out that gluten was not as big of a problem as you thought it was. It's just the fructans. So what's the good news? The good news is that if you can find a bakery or even a prepared bread that is a sourdough that has a 1 or 2 day rise, a slow rise sourdough that has no yeast added, what happens is during the fermentation process, the fructans get eaten. They get eaten up during the fermentation process, which means that a lot of us who are following the low FODMAP diet can eat a true sourdough bread. So you can make sourdough stuffing. See, I mean, I started with stuffing, went, into the quagmire there, but that's what I was getting to. So listen, the thing is, I have a friend who literally wanted to start the diet this morning, and we had a long talk about that. And what we decided is that between now and next Friday, now through Thanksgiving, she was just going to start maybe moderating her diet, but we were not going to suggest that she start full-fledged with the elimination before that day, and then she's going to start the day after. But the point is that you can always reduce, right? So stuffings could be made with sourdough bread if you already know that it's the fructans and not the gluten. We have recipes for stuffing using that. We also have gluten-free stuffings using cornbread. Cornbread is a wonderful dish to make gluten-free, works very, very well. So maybe you have a family tradition of a cornbread stuffing, and you could convert it to a gluten-free and make sure it's low FODMAP as well. I'm just looking here, and we have some groups, hopefully some people from some of the FODMAP groups joining us. I'm happy to answer any of your individual questions. And in the meantime, I will just keep telling you, here's the thing. It's my favorite meal of the year, so I get really excited about all of this food. And once I realized that I could eat it all too, that made a huge difference. The amount of anxiety that I know that I used to feel leading up to any holiday where there was going to be a lot of food, and obviously Thanksgiving was like the worst one, the best one, the worst one. It was pretty much guaranteed that by the end of the holiday, I was going to be in pain. I was going to be miserable. And that there was so much anxiety. I wanted to be with family and friends. I wanted to eat the foods that everybody else was eating. I wanted to sit at the table with all of my friends and family and have that social experience. And so I'm here to tell you that you can. You absolutely can. Because all of these traditional Thanksgiving dishes can be made into a low FODMAP version. So gravy, let's talk about gravy. We have this awesome make ahead gravy recipe at FODMAP Everyday. You could make the gravy this weekend. You could have it done. No last minute scrambling. Certainly once you cook that turkey to 165 degrees and you take it out, you do want to let it rest. You want to let it rest for at least 20 minutes. It's going to depend on the size of the bird. But what happens during that resting period is all the juices redistribute again, and the bird ends up being juicier once you slice it. And during that time, you could make your gravy. But the thing is that there's a lot of other stuff to get done too, right? We're making sure the mashed potatoes are hot and the stuffing is hot and you're calling everybody to the table. So if you can do anything ahead, I highly recommend it. And you could make your gravy this weekend. You could make the cornbread for your stuffing this weekend and put it in the freezer. You could make the cranberry sauce on Sunday or Monday. Cranberries are an interesting thing. We use the Monash University smartphone app for our information. And also, just so you know, we have 50 Monash University certified low FODMAP recipes on our site. These have been certified by the researchers who developed the diet, so you have that guarantee. And if you don't have the smartphone app yet, highly recommend that you get it. It will really help you navigate on any day. But certainly this week you're shopping, you're going to want to check things. So the reason I brought it up was because of the cranberries. So if you go on the app, they do have dried cranberries listed on the app, and they say that it is okay for us to have about a tablespoon of dried cranberries. Fresh cranberries are not on the app. However, they are listed on the Monash University site. And basically, they have said that fresh cranberries are something that we can have as long as we monitor our serving sizes. So cranberry sauce is fine. A basic cranberry sauce with cranberries, water, sugar. I put some orange zest in there. Very simple, all low FODMAP ingredients. I do recommend that you just start with a tablespoon or two. But I think that, serving size is important. It's important for the diet, but it's just, you think of how many Thanksgivings, if you're like me and you like the taste of things and you just your eyes are bigger than your stomach, you don't want to end up at the end of the day just feeling overstuffed. So moderating yourself in terms of just a little of this and a little of that is really important. Also, when it comes to low FODMAP diet, there's something called stacking, which is basically this idea that we may know that we can have a tablespoon of something or a quarter cup of something, but at a meal like Thanksgiving, you could be eating 10 food items. I mean, between appetizers and everything that's on your main dinner plate and then dessert, you're eating a lot of different foods, and you have to understand how many FODMAPs are in everything. So we have an article on our site that helps you understand this. As I said, it's called stacking. It's basically understanding how you can moderate your intake especially when you're dealing with such a large selection of food. So that would be a really good thing to brush up on. What else should we talk about? Pies, okay, desserts. So a lot of people are afraid of making pie crust. And I have to tell you, the gluten-free pie crust, it's an all butter pie crust that we have on the site. It took a lot of finessing for me. I mean, I have been baking for decades. I've been a professional pastry chef for a very long time. Baking was my first love. I mean, I've been baking since I could reach the counter. And developing this gluten-free pie crust actually took some doing. And then once I sort of got it, it's actually easier to work with than the traditional pie dough that I used to make. And the tip, and this, I switched gears halfway through. I always used to chill it before I rolled it, just like I always did with all pie dough. And then one day I realized that the texture of it seemed like it was really easy to work with. And I just went and I rolled it out, and it rolled out beautifully, and I fit it into the pie plate. And not only are you going to save time because you don't have to roll it out, but it really is very easy to work with. I do recommend that you roll it out on a very lightly floured piece of parchment paper. That will help move it around. So once you get it rolled out, you can pick up that parchment paper, you can invert it over your pie dish, and then peel it back and just press that crust right into that pie, and it will work quite well. So what are we putting in that pie crust? We have a lot of dessert recipes on the site. We have the crust recipe, as I mentioned. And for things like pumpkin pie, I often like to blind bake and par bake the crust so that the bottom crust is nice and crispy. So we have instructions for that as well. Search for blind baking, and that will take you through that. So pumpkin pie, of course, is something that all of us, a lot of people identify with Thanksgiving. And lucky for us, Monash recently, in the last 6 months or so, added canned pumpkin as a green light, allowable low FODMAP food in certain proportions, of course. And so the other ingredients in our pumpkin pie, I've used maple syrup, which is a wonderful sweetener. The pumpkin pie that's on the site right now has fresh ginger and fresh lemon zest, and it's just a really nice twist. It's like a little different, but it's not so different that it'll take you, away from getting that hit of nostalgia. So that's a pumpkin pie recipe that's ready for you. Watch your portion sizes. It's easy to overdo it for sure. We also have a pecan pie that would be great for the holiday. And what's really exciting about that one, I get excited about things like this, it has chocolate in the crust. So I shaved and chopped a little bit of dark chocolate, and I worked it into the pie crust, and it's almost like a chocolate chip pie crust, but since I chopped the chocolate, the pieces, it's just a little more elegant than it would be if you folded in like mini chocolate chips or something. But so there's like a little bit of chocolate, and then there's the pecan pie filling, and it's really, really delicious. So if you're looking for some desserts, certainly check that out. So, I think the things that, some other things to mention, stock. We need stock. We need stock for gravy. We often need stock for stuffing. And there's a couple of ways to approach stock. We have, certainly for the day after, don't get rid of that turkey carcass. We actually have a recipe that uses the turkey carcass to make low FODMAP stock, and then you'll be able to, I was going to say, stock that stock away in your freezer for future use. But now, this weekend, you could make stock. We've got recipes for chicken stock and turkey stock, and you could start now using necks and certain low FODMAP vegetables, and no garlic or onions, but we've got leeks and we've got other ways that really bolster flavor in the stock, because unfortunately most of the stocks that are on the shelves of conventional supermarkets at this time contain either onions or garlic or both. You can find low FODMAP stocks. There are companies out there, FODMAP Foods, we love our friends there, hi, and you can use their stock base. They actually have this, shelf stable powdered chicken base that I really love, because you can just make what you need when you need it. Whereas I've always found when I buy the aseptic package liquid stocks at the store, chances are I need a cup or 2 cups, and then I'm left with a cup or 2, and then I try to think about using it in the following week and I don't. But this way you can just make what you use. So stock would be another do ahead tip, along with that gravy, along with that cranberry sauce, and the pie crusts. I mean, you could make some of the pie crust this weekend as well. Pecan pie filling, it's funny, people don't think about this, and this is from my Bon Appetit days. Let's say you want to make pumpkin pie and you want to make the pecan pie. I like to eat pies the day that they're baked. I understand that on Thanksgiving itself that might be too difficult and you might be baking them the day before, but what you can do is you can actually whip up the pumpkin pie filling and put it in a container in the fridge like 2 days before you need it. And you can do the same thing with the pecan pie filling. Just bring them to room temperature before you pour them into your shells to bake them. But again, another thing that you can do ahead to make things easier for you the day of. And then in terms of, there's non-food things too. I mean, certainly if anyone offers to help, take it. Don't be one of those martyrs. I used to be that way. I'm not anymore. But there's non-food things too, right? So this weekend, if you're doing linens, those can be ironed this weekend. If you need to polish silver, or just find all of your casseroles and assemble all the stuff that you need, that can be done now, so that you're not doing it, maybe you're working on Monday, Tuesday, and or Wednesday. You don't have to worry about that during the week when you're busy. Now, in terms of, control, I've been talking as if you are preparing the whole meal. And of course, if you are going to have the most control, and so you're going to be able to make sure that all the foods are low FODMAP. If, however, you are going somewhere to a relative or a friend's house for the meal, you're not going to have as much control. This is our health. This is a medical situation. Be bold, offer to bring something and explain, and you don't have to get into details. I mean, of course, it depends how close you are to the person or not. Maybe you can and you want to, but you can simply say, I have some digestive issues. They really affect me. I would love to come and really be able to take part of the meal, and if I could bring something, maybe it would offset some work for you, and then at least I would know that there's a dish where I know what went into it. And most people are not going to say no at that point. And so things that travel well, right? Stuffing travels well. The cranberry sauce travels well. Pies, I mean, showing up, it's very Norman Rockwell, right? But show up at the doorstep with the dessert. So certainly something that you can and should offer. So people are saying hi people, and people are saying hi down here on our thing. We're going to just talk for a few more minutes. Leftovers. Oh, Robin's directing me. It's the only time I allow her to direct me, which is when I'm on camera. Anyway, leftovers. Yeah, we touched on it a little bit. If you're getting that turkey, that's 1.5 pounds per person. You will have turkey left over. We've got turkey enchiladas. We've got turkey nachos on the site. If you're on Instagram, check out the feed and go look at the video of Robin and I making these nachos. We're literally laughing so hard. I mean, I was about to start crying because what had happened was I had laid out corn chips, and I had been roasting for you to develop these recipes. I had been roasting turkey after turkey after turkey, like, 4 days in a row. I mean, we had turkey coming out of our ears. So I said to Robin, we have to use up these leftovers, and I'm going to make turkey nachos. And at the time, I didn't really know what that meant. I just knew I was going to make it happen. So we took a pan and we put chips on the pan, and I'm shredding the turkey on the chips. And so far, I mean, that seems pretty normal, right? And I knew there was some cheese coming at the end. Well, all of a sudden, I'm putting dollops of cornbread stuffing, and that's when I'm realizing, oh my God, Dédé, this is like a little crazy. Well, when I got to drizzling the gravy over the corn chips, that's when I just dissolved on camera and basically said to Robin, I cannot believe we're doing this. But gotta tell you, after the gravy, some Monterey Jack cheese, dolloped it with cranberry sauce, some slices of jalapeno. Really, really good. Like, I thought that they were going to be like weird good, but no, they were like good. So leftovers, you could do the nachos. Those are super simple. We actually have a Thanksgiving pie, which is taking all of your leftovers, piling into a pie crust, layers of turkey, layer of mashed potatoes, layer of greens, layer of cranberry sauce in the pie, layer of stuffing, gravy all over the whole shebang, topped with a top crust. This thing was very heavy. I picked up the pie dish, I'm like, oh my God. So serving sizes, watch your serving sizes, but I'm telling you, a tiny little wedge will satisfy. So plenty ideas for those leftovers. So we wish all of you the best holiday season. People are talking, okay, do-ahead ideas. You like all the do-ahead ideas. Maybe we'll work on some more of those for a winter edition within the month. And just go slow, watch your portions, offer to bring low FODMAP food wherever you are. Thank you so much for joining us, and visit us at FODMAP Everyday if you haven't. We're there for you. We want to help you thrive on this low FODMAP diet. You absolutely can make friends with food again, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.